my god, can I just get my video, please? It's been nearly 5 hours. And it's still going. It's at 100%. Come on. Oh, still not angled right. Hello, universe. My name is Gary Medina, and it's very nice to meet you. This is, of course, a continuation of my writing vlog. I knew I was going to do these for sure. It's been a bit, I'll admit, but it's been very productive while I was recording and kind of filming along. Now, if you watch me on my Facebook Live, you already know that I'm trying to write every single day and really get it out there. You know, I've been writing my schedules down for sure. One of the things I kind of ran into while writing last night was kind of where the 2 chapters I was writing was going to go, because I have the main plot and, you know, I have everything down, but these 2 chapters, they weren't necessarily like filler. They informed the growth in a character that is part of the main cast, and I wanted to make it a very good chapter, good couple arcs, or good couple chapters in the arc. But also, I feel like it might be just me kind of hesitating and just kind of waiting along. I have something happening in that, but ultimately I want it to be a lot more smoother. And it may be one of those things where I'll have to rewrite. But to kind of show you the process, I think I have the notes here somewhere. Yes. So this is kind of showing you as well as kind of my organization system right here. And I took plenty of notes, which I'll get into later. Generally, when I tackle a chapter, it's mainly I mainly look at kind of a few things. I ask a lot of questions. If you have a character that you're going to focus on in the chapter, I think the best thing to do is to interview your character. Really get in there and interrogate them. There's a form there, and you can find the forms online anywhere, in which it asks really in-depth questions of what to ask your character, and it help you understand it better. Now, my number 1 tip is it's good to write kind of a backstory, but don't spend too long, because you have to accept the fact that not all of the backstory is going to be in it. Like, for example, while I was waiting to get my oil change, whenever I took it into the shop, I spent that time writing out the backstory of a character that is going to be involved in the arc. And he's not going to show up again after that because something happens to him. He dies. The point is, I know his background as to being, you know, involved with some bad people. You know, he worked as a contract killer. I know that he has a really good shot, and he has an inciting incident that kind of pushed him into that career path. Thing is, it's never going to be on the page. It's going to be implied in his actions, the way he speaks, the way he operates. That's how we kind of get an idea, because it's a thing I like to, well, it's a thing known as implications. You want to imply certain things in your work, but the things you want to get down on paper are definitely your plot, your characters, and whatnot, and how they are at that present moment. So I did do a treatment where I kind of wrote it out in pen. It was going well so far up until I hit a wall. And then, of course, whenever I read back, I like to take notes as to any ideas or any concepts that really stick out in the last chapter that I wrote or edited, if you will. So as I'm going through the edits, I kind of take quick little notes as to what kind of changes to the world, to kind of the universe itself is happening. You know, any changes in character motivation, not character motivation, but kind of their actions. You know, how are they reacting to certain things? I make a little mental note, and a lot of it has been mental, and a lot of the notes have actually been in here more than the big journal. This right here is kind of me just milling along and just kind of getting the thing down, in which the mechanic has left, and Skady is left with the group. This is kind of notes for the upcoming chapter. Skady was a character I introduced in the last arc, and she's kind of sticking around with the group for the time being. And I made a note here that yes, she is with the group right now. And you know, I ask myself questions whenever I do it. Is she staying? And you know, it's okay to ask yourself questions. And I ask myself this, and I ask myself, she's pretty fun, why not? And I wrote, could be used as a death to motivate anyone in the final arc of the series, of the current series right now. So I'm kind of wrapping up for kind of the last book in this current series to be pretty big. And if I introduce her now, kind of build her up, she could be a death that could motivate the rest of the cast. He got what he wanted. So I kind of wanted to put a red herring there, in which it feels like his arc is complete. His own personal story arc is complete because he got what he wanted. He wanted to be free. He got his freedom after the events of the last arc. So he escapes. And it seems like he won. And that's kind of why I wanted to introduce this upcoming story arc, because I wanted to show that freedom in that way is not necessarily the best idea. It's one of those things where your self-limiting belief is challenged. Because it's challenged, you start to find out it's not true, and that forces growth of a character when the thing that they wanted turned out to be a lie or didn't live up to their expectations. And in real life, that's devastating. And in fiction, that is a character-changing moment. Wasabi, what are you doing? He's just being crazy, of course. Messing with a box, I think. Now he fell. Now you look like a dummy. But yes, anytime the self-limiting belief, or the desire, I should say, the longing, is challenged and shown as to not be what they wanted in the first place, I mean, for us in real life, it's devastating. And for a character, it's devastating as well. And it gives us, in real life, it gives the characters in the story a chance to grow and, you know, change, but not entirely. You don't want to betray the concept of the character in the first place. And I kind of had to take, you know, the mechanic back to the drawing board as to what is he? What is he as a character? What purpose does he serve in the story? It's very much a lot of considerations like that. And I guess really the only problem is feeling like I'm kind of going through the chapter and kind of building up the threat, because I want the climax of this arc to be exciting. Of course, I'm a writer. Of course, this is what I want for my book. What else? So he has a chance to start over, but it's not ideal. I wrote it down. I wrote this down before I even had the concept, you know, fully materialized in my head. It just goes to show you that, you know, if you're a writer, you think about this kind of stuff a lot. It's not ideal because the town he settles on is bum and crummy. He's still stinging from the guilt because he recognizes that the group he left behind, they are genuinely good people. They are good people with good hearts that gave him a chance, and he kind of let them down by leaving. So he's still kind of stinging from guilt. And I kind of wrote here that he decides to drink it down. Now, this actually didn't end up in the chapter that I was writing. He kind of abstained from alcohol, not as a choice, but just kind of, I don't know, I might put it back in there. But the fact that the town is crummy, and the fact that he's still feeling guilt, those are the results of him trying to gain his freedom from the group. And so naturally, we already kind of get the challenge to his longing and his own beliefs. And he says to himself, I'll make it work. He won't say this, and it won't be written in the actual novel, but it's kind of a moment that you'll see through body language that, you know, I'll make this work. A determination arises when he meets a young woman. And now here's where things start to get, you know, start to really complicate. Not for me, but for the story. And I feel, as a single guy myself, I mean, nothing throws your plans in disarray more than, you know, the wiles of a pretty young woman. I can say this from personal experience. Nothing, you know, derails you better than an attractive woman being in your life. And I also kind of wrote down some preliminary concepts as to what I want her personality to be. She's carefree but has depth and asks interesting questions. And I even wrote down, now me myself, I believe people are way too advanced to be pigeonholed into the 4-letter, personality types, the MBTI. And the results can change depending on your mood. That's how complex we are. Like when you take the test when you're in a bad mood, you're probably gonna come out more introverted. Whereas if you do it in a good mood, you're gonna come out, feeling more extroverted. But there's still enough details to at least help you form your characters. And I even wrote the kind of dynamic, the ENFP and INTJ dynamic. That's the kind of, she's the more outgoing and extroverted one, he's the more introverted one. But again, I also don't believe in introversion versus extroversion. I believe it's just a matter of where you recharge and how good you are at talking to people. It's a skill. She represents a new future, bright and unknown. So naturally, she's exciting to him. She's attractive, she's interesting. There's some mystery behind her. So naturally, he wants to chase after it because he sees that as a new future. She's a new set of philosophy. She's a new path to a new life. She wants to travel while he wants to set up somewhere new. This right here is when I didn't necessarily have an idea fully of what I wanted her to be. I for sure wanted the mechanic to take on a human opponent because the people they've been fighting already were way above his level. And the only reason he survived is because he stuck close to the group. And the group helped him stay alive because they have abilities, whereas he doesn't. And this, I kind of knocked it down to where she's not a physical threat, as in she has, she can shoot beams out of her hands, but it's more of a mental thing. More of a mental threat, if you will. He can still take her on, but that doesn't mean he's gonna have an easy time. She wants to travel while he wants to set up somewhere new. And I think this is where I started forgetting, and I think this is where a lot of the complications are. I forgot the character's DNA, pretty much. With the mechanic, I kind of have it in my head. I really needed to really drill on Alette's, worldview and philosophy, because I'm writing in third-person omniscient. Now, what that means is the camera is still away from the character. There's no eyes or me or myself. It's they, him, her, and they think this, they think that, in which I know what the character's thinking at all times. Doesn't necessarily mean the other characters have to know, but you as the reader will get that information. And I wanted to kind of give that in, because I didn't want to just simply tell the reader what they're feeling at that moment. I wanted them to kind of pick it up whenever they express certain body language, for sure. And I definitely wanted to get that going. And I think that's where I started to kind of fall apart on this arc, because I haven't studied up or really gotten into getting to know the characters. So she chastised him slightly for wasting his potential. She appreciates his intelligence and talents with machinery. Now this right here, I think this is where I started to go wrong, because this is some really interesting stuff. And for the fact that she is onto him about wasting his potential, that kind of shows him that, oh wow, this woman is an improvement to my life. And she appreciates his intelligence. That kind of feeds into his ego, making her way more irresistible. And I'm hoping maybe the reader will be like, wow, she's actually, I wouldn't mind getting with someone like that. Perfect, you're in my trap. Because she is a dangerous woman, as we'll find out. Maybe he reveals that he gets bored easy. It's maybe that feeds back into why he wants to run away and start over and start a brand new life. Let's see. Picking up and leaving is a big challenge, and maybe he can set himself up as a community pillar. He wants to live a normal life. This is not true. This is kind of betrays who he is as a person. He wants to live an exciting life. He wants to be stimulated. That's probably why he always breaks down machines and looks at their guts and rebuilds them, because he wants stimulation. This is really good just talking it out. Even if some of this isn't going to make it on the video, it feels good to, I think you should do that. If you're a writer, I think you should do that with your characters. You should write some notes, read it out loud, see if it fits or not. Maybe, you know what I'm thinking? Maybe he can tell her he wants a normal life. Maybe he can tell her that he wants to set up and be a community pillar. But deep down, he really wants some stimulation in his life. That it could explain why he's always running around and never settling down. And then I started to ask myself, who is this character? I started off with the basic. He's a fifth of the main cast, effectively, and I just kind of made up the title, a freestyle engineer. He's not beholden to any rules or regulations of the sort. What does he want? And I say, wants to start over. And then I ask myself, why? He feels a lack of control in his life, talents exploited for the enrichment of others. So that kind of feeds into stimulation. I mean, why do we want to be stimulated? So we won't get bored. And with bored, we feel like we're losing control of our lives. He wants a handle on his life, and taking on the final job allowed him a way out. That's in which he decided, this was kind of his inciting incident that kind of led him to the group. He betrayed the team he was working with whenever he was robbing the bank, thus making himself marked for death. So he kind of has to rely on the group for protection. So loses it when he takes control during the heist. I don't know what that means. Oh, wait. I forgot to read the one up top. He wants control. He loses it when he takes control during the heist. This is when he makes the decision to betray his team and decides to run off with the money himself because he sees the opportunity there and he decided to take it. And then it sends his life in a spiral downward in which he's now involved with a group who's, again, exploiting his talents to enrich their own needs. I mean, they're nice people, they're the good guys of the story, but breaking it down, they are exploiting his talent. So that's something to consider. Tactician, not a strategist. That means he's very much in the present kind of moment, but because of that, he's always thinking about the now, not really thinking long term. It fits with the whole kind of wild card, not wanting to stay in one place. Pays attention to the minute details of a plan, situation, person. Long term is vague and unclear, leading to disappointments. Now, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this whenever we put our eggs in one basket and it just doesn't work out. So maybe he can be distracted, or oh wait, I'm skipping way too much. Mask this by Kraken Wise. So instead of dealing with his own emotional issues, thus helping him develop into a better person, he stays flawed by always cracking jokes, about his current situation. In his own mind, it seems like a way of handling a bad situation a lot better, but it prevents him from confronting the issues head on. So this is kind of the next point for the chapter. Albert realizes something's up when the bolt shot up. This is kind of getting into, and I think this is where I'll have to cut it. I think I found the problem. Oh, excuse me. I think what had happened was I focused too much on, and this is gonna sound crazy, on the plot itself, that it ends up kind of bleeding, and I think it's kind of dragging me down and kind of taking my energy having to keep up with this. I think it's absolutely necessary, that way we know that it's still the same story. So I might keep it entirely, but I might have to shorten it out. And I think that's what was draining my energy, is that I was pretty much writing a whole new scene where they wake up and they walk to town. Not very interesting. The waking up part can be really good because they deal with emotions, having been betrayed by a guy who had been known to betray groups and teams, and they're kind of coming together with that. And I think that's where I should end it. I don't think I should show them walking to town. I think it's implied that they're going to walk to town. And a bit of a plot hole thing. Well, if it's one straight road, won't they just run into him when they go into another town? I'll have to put in there that he does intend on creating a disguise and kind of hiding out in town incognito, in which they can just pass and continue on. So that's kind of the plugging that plot hole there. Again, more details about the group as we move on, but it does kind of take away the fact that this arc is focused on this one character. But it's necessary in order to connect it back to the main story, and the ending does need to be substantial to the plot, in which it is, in my opinion. It is because in the climax, and I think I wanted to keep the team around, the group around, because they will appear in the climax, and I wanted to give them the proper build-up. And I feel that by adding the kind of build-up there, it doesn't feel like an ass pull. It doesn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina in which, oh, they suddenly appear. So that's why I kind of have to pay lip service to them moving around and, you know, getting stuff together and heading out. It does kind of make the ending a bit more predictable, but I think the payoff is way more valuable than being surprised, because at the end, their resolve as a group, as a team is strengthened. They're able to be more confident in their actions. And of course, because we're not done with the book yet, that confidence is going to get punished hard. Wow. I'm so glad I talked this out with you guys. I think I figured out what's wrong, and I'm kind of having an idea as to what I want to do with the following chapter. So I wrote here some of the things I need to remember for the end and kind of the rest of the chapter is the promise, a quiet life together between Alette and the mechanic. Now, I still need to really examine Alette as a character and try to get the proper, you know, just try to get her down, pinpoint her down as a character, and to kind of figure out where in her life a quiet life fits in that void, if you will. Augustine and Alette want to be tragic and one-sided. So it's very much kind of a unrequited love story in which the guy is into the girl, she's not into him at all, and I wanted to feel tragic and one-sided. And originally I kind of had their interactions more hostile as the chapter went on. I might have to change that to where he's more submissive. And that way, you know, when something happens to him, it is tragic, but it's also a little pathetic. He's not supposed to be, he's a character you can sympathize with, but not a character you want to be, pretty much. So I have to change that from hostile. Maybe they meet up again and we bring up a bit of their history. I wrote extensively as to what their history is, but because I'm going to use implication, you'll only get the small detail. Because in my opinion, when it comes to writing, at least from my writing, whatever the reader interprets is canon to you. You know? I had to figure out how to make Augustine be injured, bloodied, or at least away from the scene of the climax in which Alette and the mechanic face off against each other. The beginning, and whenever he's knocked out, that just kind of brings in the motions that it's the beginning of the climax. The climax is the one-on-one encounter between the mechanic and Alette. And I'm thinking maybe the mechanic pushes Augustine off an elevator or some kind of high elevated area. Find, what did I say? Base? Find the tension between the mechanic and Alette during or after Augustine is stunned. So maybe their desire to kind of live a quiet life together could be tested here. Maybe he tries to talk her out of it. Maybe she decides that it's all business. Somehow the group finds out that the mechanic is in trouble. And I'm thinking maybe while he's running away, they kind of catch a glimpse of him when they make it to the next town and they start to pursue this mystery person. So I'm going to write down what my issues are and what to look up from talking it out openly like this. So, and Augustine. All right, I have my list of what I need to work on. Let me go ahead and dot, and dot. So those are the kind of things I'll be working on. I'm obviously going to come up with something more. I just wanted to record this quick little video, and I'm glad I really got to talk this out. You'll be seeing more videos like this very soon. But pretty much, I hope you guys are having a great weekend. Will have a great weekend, I should say, or having one. You might see this on Saturday. Thank you again for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And of course, I want everybody to stay safe, love yourself, and write strong.